welcome to Easy Eats. My name is Chef Yves Dechaine, and today we're in the Greener Villages Learning Kitchen with Charlotte Burhoe, owner of Wine by Night, and also their sommelier. Welcome, Charlotte.
Thank you very much for having me today for doing this. I'm kind of really excited to see what we're going to make today.
Well, perfect. So it's summertime, and in the summertime, we're trying to reduce the heat in the kitchen. So
Yes.
It's always a good idea to do nice summer salads. And then this one is one of my favorite summer salads. It's a nice couscous salad that we're going to make today. But you can kind of adapt it, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I've got you on today and you brought us some wines that we'll be able to pair.
I did bring some wines. I'm excited to talk about those and why they might work with this. And I love that we're doing something that doesn't require a lot of heat, because the weather that we've been having has been crazy. And like the lights are off in my house. Nobody's allowed to use the stove or oven. I'm like, get something from the fridge or barbecue.
Absolutely. So before we get all this started, Charlotte, let's talk a little bit about a sommelier. So
Okay.
a sommelier, what's a sommelier and what does a sommelier do?
So a sommelier is kind of an interesting term because it just means I know a lot about wine. And I talk about wine a lot, and I could probably fill up this entire segment talking about wine. So, but in terms of being a sommelier, you can start like at a restaurant level, and you can go all the way up to like a master of wine. So there's various steps of the way to get to where you are. I went through a program called WSET, which
Okay.
is the Wine Spirits Education Trust. And I currently hold a level 3 certification with that. And I wore my green pin for you today.
Perfect. So, well, let's get that pin. So you said you're at level 3. So how many levels are there?
So there's 4 levels.
Okay.
Level 4 is the diploma, and that really sets you up for more like going in towards the Master of Wine afterwards.
Well, so let's talk about that. So I myself, as a chef, as a cook, I like wine. I'm an enthusiast. So what's the difference between me being an enthusiast and you being a sommelier?
Learning about all of the wines in general, and then taking those keynotes of like what you've learned and how you can place it. And food pairings is a big part of a sommelier's job, and a wine steward or anything like that that's working in a restaurant being like, oh, we're making this. Well, what wine would go well with that?
Right on. And how do you evaluate a wine as a sommelier? So again, that whole idea is like today we're doing a couscous. So like where will we tend to? So the old adage, and it's an antiquated adage, that fish and chicken white wine,
Yes.
pork and beef red wine. Is that still hold true?
It does for the most part. Now, with food pairings, it's kind of hard sometimes, because if you don't like white wine, then you're going to want to drink a red wine. And so
Right.
you can pair a red wine with fish, probably like a lighter red wine, like a Pinot Noir or like a rosé even with it. And so you're moving kind of the bridge a little bit to get to the red wines that you like.
Okay.
And that's the thing, like if you like a food and you like a wine, they might not go together, but you like both of them separately, so you're going to like it. But a sommelier's job is to tell you, like, or to lead you down that path of, well, this one, although this isn't a wine that you would typically order, would go really great with this because of X, Y, and Z.
Let's talk about the chemistry. Like we're gonna
Yeah.
get down into the science, and I guess like
Absolutely.
sommelier as well. It kind of leans towards the science of it all as
It
well,
does,
right?
and that's why I took the WSET course program, because there are other programs you can take to become a sommelier. The Court of Sommeliers, you can take CAPS program, which is a Canadian Atlantic professional sommeliers organization, and they have, I guess, districts
Okay.
throughout Canada. So there's a grouping in like BC out west, and there's the Atlantic one as well. There's so many different programs, but I chose WSET because I have a science background, and it's standardized, so it's a global program. So whether I studied here in Canada, or I went to London to study it, or I went to Asia to study it, we're learning all the same information. It's standardized.
So it's a level playing field.
It's a level playing field.
Nice.
And so that really spoke to me from my previous education background. But looking at like the science of wines with food, it really depends. Like sometimes you think it's a great pairing, but the acid is just a little bit off,
Okay, yeah.
and it no longer works. But there are things that we look at, like acid pairs well with acid. So if you have something that's tomato-based, that's usually going to have like a little bit more acidity to
Right.
it. So a wine that has some acidity to it is going to pair well with it. But that doesn't necessarily mean you could take a Sauvignon Blanc and pair with
Right.
pasta red sauce. But you can sometimes. So it really depends on what else is going to be in your meal. So it's really understanding where the wine is coming from and knowing the style that they produce.
What's it? The wine maker, and the grape, right?
Winemakers are magicians, in my opinion, and I've said that to a few of them because they can take something and make it into something completely different if they want to.
Your job as a sommelier is to suggest different wines, but everyone, like you said, has a different palate. So I lean towards, and we mentioned it earlier, you know, I like this Pinot, and I really like this fish. Is it going to, how hard of a job is it to kind of pair that together, and how does a sommelier work with so many different tastes?
That's a great question, and sometimes it can be challenging, but if you ask questions and you're like, oh, you like, what's your favorite wine? That will give me a cue on what else you might like, because I probably will know that wine. So if you're saying Pinot Grigio, I might lead you down the path of a Pecorino or a Verdicchio from Italy, because they're all going to still have those neutral and little apple and pear notes to it, but it's going to be a little bit more fancy, if you will, and level up a bit on your wine choice, and it would still go well, and you're still going to like it because it's going to have those notes that you like from the Pinot Grigio.
What type of personality would you need? Like, it's not everybody that can become a sommelier. Like you're saying, there's a science, and you can understand the science, but again, when you're talking about pairing, you really do need to be personable, don't you?
You do. You have to be able to talk to people. You have to be willing to ask questions. You also have to have the ability to maintain a lot of information.
Well, absolutely, yeah.
Like a CPU almost, and pulling on that information and how you can use it for your customer, especially if you're in a restaurant business, and finding out what the foods are, what they like as a customer. So if I have a customer that says, oh, I like something that's, you know, a little bit dry but fruity, then in my mind I'm like, do they want a Sauvignon Blanc or do they want a Riesling? Because they're both dry.
And they're both fruity, right?
And they're both fruity. And so then you have to ask kind of a little bit more questions. You might look at what they're ordering and then suggest from based on that.
So we'll get into making this lovely couscous salad after these few messages. Welcome back to Easy Eats. Again, we're in the Greener Villages kitchen with Charlotte Burhoe, sommelier, and we are going to make a couscous salad with her. So we've got our water boiling right here, and then we're just going to add our couscous. What I like about couscous is it's really, really simple. It's like making minute rice. Excellent. So it's equal parts. So I've got a cup of water here, and I've got a cup of couscous.
Excellent. And now tell me about couscous. Like, is it pasta? Is it grain? Where's it from?
A lot of people mistake it for a grain because it's a lot like quinoa, or a lot like bulgur. It's got that kind of small grainy stuff, but it's actually not. It's basically like a pasta made from durum wheat. Okay. It's a North African, and today we're using a Moroccan couscous, which is the smallest of the couscous. Okay. So it kind of looks and feels like cornmeal. Okay. So it's got that kind of polenta feel if you want it to, but it won't get creamy like a polenta will. So basically, all we've done now is we've just put that in.
They are in different sizes.
There are different sizes. So there's 3 different types. So you've got your Moroccan, which we're using today. There's an Israeli couscous, which is a little bit bigger. It's like a pearl couscous. So it'd be almost like the size of barley. Okay. And kind of pearled, and it's called a pearl couscous or Israeli couscous. And then there's a Lebanese couscous, which is like the in between. Okay. So if you think about it as cornmeal, we would understand. Okay. There's different grades of cornmeal. Yes. And then there's different grades of couscous as it is. I don't know. It's believed, and some people say that couscous means it's the sound, the coo from the French of the pounding of the way they make it, and it comes out rounded. So it's either it means rounded in Berber, or coucou or couscous, which is Arabic French. Okay. That's pretty cool, yeah.
So it was 1 cup and 1 cup, so equal parts.
Equal parts. So like I said, it's just like your minute rice. You follow the directions on the box, and the directions will be on, unless you buy it from the bulk barn, the packaging will give you the rest of the directions to do that right there. So we're going to let that sit right there, and while we're doing that, let's talk a little bit about more about a sommelier. So we talked a little bit about what a sommelier does, but how do you fit into Fredericton, and where do you work out of?
So I do a lot of work from my house. I'm often found in the liquor stores because I'm looking at the experience programs to see what new wines have come out. And of course, everybody has their own niche and specific interests. So in terms of hunting out new wines, I love doing that. But I also operate in terms of I go to people's homes or companies and do team building exercises and wine tastings with them, or even if it's at their home, teach them how to make pasta and bring in the wine so it's more of a family style. Everybody's got their hands in it, everybody's working to just really feel good and bring the team together.
Cool. So there's kind of like a dinner night with the wine pairings and stuff like that. And then, but a typical tasting, I guess those team building ones, are they like the ones, like I said, we were talking during the break about culinary school, where you're sitting down in the auditorium, you've got your white paper and you've got the 3 or 4 glasses in front of you. Is that typically how it goes?
I have done some tastings like that,
okay,
but most times it's very much more informal.
Okay.
And it's just like a conversation like we're having today. And it would be, everybody has their glass and we go through with the wines, and the number of wines depends on what we're trying to accomplish that night.
Okay.
Or that day, depending on what time it is. And so we go through the wines one by one. We talk about how you do a wine tasting. And if we're using my glasses, which are ISO glasses, so standardized again, and every wine will express itself in that glass kind of the same way. So you can look at the color, you can smell it, then you taste it, and it's going to hit your palate the same way each time.
So what's an ISO glass for?
So that's a fancy word for standardized glass. It holds it's about this tall on the, I guess, the bulb of the glass, and then it has the stem on it. And they're all shaped the same way, and they have the same diameter at the top. The widest part of the glass is about 2 inches.
Okay.
And so it's not very big. It's a little dainty glass. And so whether it's a white wine or a red wine or orange wine, I assess them all in that type of glass.
So the couscous seems to be ready right here. And to check it, we'll just take the lid off. And there we go. See, now it's absorbed and it's nice. And then we'll just grab the thing and we'll just fluff that right up. Just like that. So
it's like a little fluffy.
It is, and you just grab a fork or a spoon right after it's cooked, like this, and then we're going to just put this directly into the salad bowl. Now, I always like to make my salads with my grains or the main base warm, and the reason behind that is basically it draws in the flavor as it's cooling. It's sucking in all that flavor.
Okay.
So when you're using cold couscous or cold pasta or cold potatoes, well, it's just sitting there, so all that flavor is just sitting on top of it. When it's warm, all those vinegars and all the flavors will get sucked into it as it's cooling.
It's almost like marinating.
Exactly, but quicker.
Okay. I like this.
So we'll just fluff all of this up just like this, and then we'll start by just making the dressing for it. Really, really simple dressing, and the dressing for it just gets poured right on.
Okay.
So all we're going to do is we're going to grab a couple of tablespoons of olive oil right here. There we go. So 3 tablespoons or so of olive oil, just like that. We're going to take a little bit of red wine vinegar. Now, you can use red wine vinegar, you can use apple cider vinegar, you can use champagne vinegar, white wine vinegar if you'd like. I wouldn't use just plain old white vinegar. Just try to use a different type of vinegar.
You could use a red wine that's gone off that you left open a little bit too long.
You could do that, absolutely. And then a little bit of lime juice or lemon juice just to spark a little flavor. And then that's pretty much it.
Okay.
That's
I love that
that's
you're
your
using
vinaigrette.
some lime in there.
Lime, I prefer lime over lemon because I find it sharper. And but that's just my palate. There we go. And then
I've seen a lot of nice ingredients over here.
Well, that's it. And now we're just going to add our fresh ingredients. So all of our garden ingredients. So we'll add your cucumber. Right like this. We will add our red onion. I like a red onion because it's a sweeter onion. And it's also the pop of color. So if you wanted to use green onions, scallions, or garlic scapes, that'll work. Ooh. And what's nice about these salads is it'll adapt any kind of fresh vegetable that's coming in from your garden. Okay. So instead of you using cucumber, if you've got tons of zucchini, then put zucchini instead of cucumber.
Or can you eat zucchini raw?
Absolutely. It's my favorite thing raw. Yeah. The only thing is try to keep them small. As soon as they start to get really, really big, that's when they start to taste woody, so they're not very tasty raw. All right, and then we're gonna put in some bell pepper, just like that, and then chickpeas.
Oh, chickpeas. Tell me about chickpeas.
This is a kind of a neat addition. I went to a potluck a while back, and someone had brought a salad, and it had a pasta salad had chickpeas in it, and I fell in love with it. And I said, "This is fantastic. Why don't I do it with any kind of all the salads I make? Because it's a really good protein punch, and they're cheap."
Now, if they're canned chickpeas, which is probably what I would typically buy, like how well should you rinse those? Or?
I rinse them a lot.
Okay.
I really do, because you'll get that muddy flavor from the aquafaba is the word from or your chickpea water, and that'll kind of muddy everything out. So what I do is I just rinse them out and until it runs clear, and it's not cloudy anymore, and then there we go.
Okay. Now, I know we're using couscous, but what else could you use in this type of salad? Because I'm visioning like a pasta, like in terms of like orzo, like a small little thing.
Well, yeah, you could use orzo, you could use macaroni if that's what you had in your cupboard if you wanted to. If you want to stick with the grains or that type of theme. A few weeks ago, I on my live, I used barley. You can use barley, you can use bulgur wheat, you could use fricassee, which is one of the newer grains that I've recently come to get to meet with our new Somalian friends that have come in, and and then any kind of grain you want. And then we're just going to mix this up just like this.
Already looks lovely.
We're going to add some tomatoes here. So tomatoes, any kind of tomatoes. I had cherry tomatoes, and I always like adding cherry tomatoes. But I've got a trick for cherry tomatoes. So instead of just cutting them like this, which I do.
Which is what I do.
I do that too, but because it's more of a relaxing thing in the kitchen to do. But if, you're in the 9th hour and you need to get this, or you don't like cutting tomatoes, like a lot of people don't like doing, you can kind of trick it out if we're just having the tomatoes.
Okay.
So it's really simple. You grab 2 smaller plates. You can use a big plate if you're doing a lot of tomatoes, but you got to make sure that the knife will fit between the so get a long knife with a big plate or a big knife with a smaller plate. But it's really, really simple. All we do is just fill the plate with your tomatoes. You put this right on top, just like that.
Okay.
I'll move this here so you have a better chance to look at it. And then all you do is don't squeeze them hard.
Okay. I'm like.
Just a slight pressure. And
where's the juice going to go?
And then just slide your knife right across.
But way more cut in a quicker time.
Oh, absolutely. And then we're just going to add these to the salad.
Oh, I'm definitely going to be trying that later.
Just like that. There we go. That looks pretty good.
Oh, it looks delicious.
So we're just going to garnish with a little bit of pepper. Just a little bit of salt, like this. And then herbs from the garden. So I picked these up today, right from our garden. So we're going to start off with basil that we got from the garden today.
Lovely.
So just 2-3 leaves like this.
Is there any tricks to growing basil?
Tricks to growing basil? I mean, a good soil. You got to make sure that it's not in the direct sun. And there's but our gardener here at the Greener Village, if you wanted to pick her brain, she'd be happy to help you out here. So I'm going to finish garnishing this salad with the herbs, and then we'll be back to pair some wines with this lovely couscous salad. Welcome back to Easy Eats. So during the break, we garnished the salad with a little bit of oregano, some parsley, and some basil. And then we sprinkled a little bit of feta cheese on top just to, well, because I like feta cheese. That's probably the only real reason.
I love feta cheese. You can't go wrong with that.
So here's the salad right here, ready for a beautiful evening supper or a nice, beautiful lunch. And now you brought the wine. So what wines are we pairing with this today?
So I brought a couple. Well, I brought 3 different wines.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And they'll each go for different reasons. And because everybody, as we talked before, they have different preferences of what they like or what they enjoy drinking, that's why I brought 3 different ones. So I think the first one, which I think would be the most ideal pairing with this one, is actually a Vinho Verde, so from Portugal. Now, Vino Verde, this is where that sommelier thing comes in. Vino Verde can mean two different things. It can mean the region or it can mean a style. It's not confusing at all, right?
No.
In this case, it's kind of both. So it is from the northern part of Portugal. And Vino Verde, in this wine, I know that there's going to be a little spritz to it.
Okay.
It's not sparkling, but there's a little effervescent to this wine. And this is going to have like really good acidity, which is going to pair really well and balance out that couscous with the tomatoes and the lime as well.
Is it a single grape varietal or is it a blend?
This one is a blend.
Okay. What constitutes a blend?
So for blends, it can really be anything, one grape and a bit more. And it can go up to 5 grapes or even more. Like there's no cap on what can be in a blend.
Perfect. And then your Vino Verde right here, what grapes are in this one?
So this one is Alvarinho and Luero. And it's going to give you those really great flavors that are going to pull out all the juiciness of this couscous salad that we've made.
So, okay, so let's talk about that. Yeah, what notes will it pull out? So what notes do you think the wine will you pull from the wine while eating the salad, and I guess vice versa?
So I think that when you're eating the salad with the wine, you're going to notice a little bit more lime flavors and the green apple flavors because of the nice lime and the vinegar that you've used in this, as well as the onion. And the acidity with the tomatoes is going to balance well with this, and as well, the couscous is going to balance it, but the feta cheese is going to make the wine kind of pop a little bit more because of the saltiness.
Okay.
So that's for the white wine that I brought.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I also brought a rosé, which it's summertime, it's hot. I love a good rosé.
Yeah.
And I will drink rosé every day, all day, 365 days a year.
Okay, yeah.
So this one I chose because it's from the Loire Valley. And so this is 100% Cabernet Franc. And this wine, although it's a rosé made from Cab Franc, it's still going to have those fruit notes to it, but it's going to have like this minerality to it, which is, again, is going to go really well with the feta. The couscous is going to be kind of that neutral background for this wine. And the flavors that are in here are going to complement. They're not going to fight with anything that's in the salad. And then I brought a little bit more of a red wine. So this is La Chasse. It's a Côte de Rhône, so more in the southern area of France, kind of like that middle area. And this is, again, it's a blend, it's Côte de Rhône. So this would be like your Syrah, your Grenache, and your Mourvèdre. It gives you that, like, pairs well with the lime juice, the vinegar, and also the tomatoes that are in there.
Perfect. So as a sommelier, is it just wine, or are we talking spirits and other things as well?
So it's kind of a different bracket, but with the education that I took, like through my certification, I did study spirits as well.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I have a soft spot for whiskey, and whiskey is like that broader umbrella where then you can break it down into rye, bourbon, Scotch, Canadian. So it just depends
Absolutely.
on what you're interested in.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So here, you grab some of that. Perfect.
Okay.
Try some of this, and let me know what you think. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and helping me make this salad and giving us a choice of wines and to show that there's different varieties, that it doesn't always have to be white for white or white for salads and things like that. So if you want to learn more, reach out to Charlotte, and I'm sure she'll set up an evening of wine or an afternoon of wine for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.